Alrighty, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the May 19th, 2016 meeting of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. It is approximately 1:30, and we have a quorum, and we'll go ahead and do introductions. And I'm Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County.
Bill Alsbach, City of Woodland Park.
PPACG.
Wendy Pettit, CDOT Region 2.
Aaron Busto, Federal Highways.
Larry Manning, Town of Monument.
Wade Burkholder, City of Manitou Springs.
Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit.
In the audience.
David Averill, CDOT Division of Transit and Rail. Kevin Reyes, PPACG.
Hi, I'm Peter Kaczynski. I'm the Director of the Road X Program in Colorado Department of Transportation.
Leslie Maxwell, CDOT.
Mark Andrews, CDOT.
John Hall, CDOT Region 2.
Jay Conono, Diaxis.
Brian Allery, Dias.
Hannah Stevens, PPACG.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Next item is the agenda approval. Does anybody have any revisions, changes to the agenda? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, do I have a motion for approval?
Motion approval of the agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 3 is public comments. These are for items not on the agenda, so if you have anything to say that's not already on the agenda today. All righty. Item number 4, approval of the March 17th, 2016 and March 29th, 2016 meeting minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read those. Is there any discussion, changes that anybody has identified? Did everybody read them?
No.
Do you have a motion for approval then?
I move approval of the minutes for March 17th.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 5, Board of Directors report from the May 11th, 2016 meeting.
Oh, we have March 10th.
Oh, I did them at one time.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah. We need to, okay.
We had 2 brief presentations. Actually, it was a call for minutes, or for comments on the plan or the tip. It was a 2-3-minute presentations, basically, and that was it for the May board meeting from a transportation perspective. So it's very low impact.
Any further questions about that? Alrighty. Moving on to item number 6, the 2040 Long Range Plan Amendment number 1. This is a review and recommend item. Presentation by Jennifer Valentine, Transportation Planner.
This is on. Hello? Okay.
Hello, welcome.
I guess I will introduce myself again. Jennifer Valentine, Transportation Planner with PPACG. So as the other Jennifer said, I'm here for Amendment number 1 of the Moving Forward 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. So just a real brief background. So last November, the Board of Directors approved and adopted the Regional Transportation Plan. The reason that we are requesting this or proposing this amendment now is due to a federal regulation requiring that the TIP and the long-range plan be consistent. Currently, the list of projects recommended for funding in the TIP includes a few projects that are not currently listed in the long-range plan. If these projects are to receive funding, this amendment to the long-range plan does need to happen to achieve that consistency. The amendment only proposes what's needed to achieve consistency. No other changes are proposed. So a little bit of additional background. March of this year, this committee and the Community Advisory Committee approved release of this amendment for public comment. Although we did receive a few public comments on the TIP itself, there were no comments specifically related to the long-range plan amendment. We did go through the 30-day public comment period and, again, did not receive any comments. So this committee is being asked to make its final recommendation to the Board of Directors about Transportation Plan Amendment Number 1. Any questions? One other quick thing to add, if there are no questions about the amendment itself. We did receive a letter of concurrence from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment related to this amendment. It basically just says that we would be maintaining our positive conformity determination even with this amendment, so there are no problems there.
Any questions for Jennifer? Any further discussion? Is there a motion then on the table?
Move approval of Amendment 1 to the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan.
Is there a second?
Second. I was going to give someone else an opportunity, but yeah, second. Good job, Jennifer, for your kind of first big thing, so.
Thank you.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any comment from the audience? All righty. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, from Colorado Springs here today, huh?
Jim's on his way, I believe.
Okay. Well, you're kind to me.
Just Brian. Item number 7, the 2017 to 2022 TIP program approval. This is another review and recommend item. Kevin Reyes, is that how you say it?
Yep, you got
Okay,
it, yeah.
I just want to make sure I did it right. Transportation planner.
Yeah, so again, my name is Kevin Reyes. I'm the new transportation planner here at PPACG. I think I've met most of you already as I've been working with you over the past several weeks on getting the TIP ready for the board meeting next month. I'm just going to take you through what I've been doing over the past several weeks to get it ready, to kind of bring you up to speed on where we are with the TIP. So we just finished the public comment period. It was from April 13th until May 15th. We received a total of 97 comments. We received the comments in 3 different ways. The first was in a survey. It was an online survey, and basically we had a map that showed the region. On the map, we had the different projects listed that we're going to be doing. We asked the question, basically, is this a good use of your tax money? We received 27 comments on this survey. I'll give you a quick synopsis on what most of them said. 10 of the comments said they wanted to see money spent on alternative transportation projects. 4 of them were very specific, and they said they wanted to see a bike lane on Jackson Creek Parkway. The second way we received comments was through Facebook. We received 59 comments on there. These ones were a little bit more passionate, and they were basically 28 of them were geared towards fixing the potholes. So that was mostly from Facebook. We received an additional 11 comments, just administrative changes from our own staff, from CDOT and FHWA. These included updating the years in the draft TIP to reflect the 2017-2022 TIP. We also phased CMAQ, STP, Metro, and the TAP categories into pre-construction and construction. This is a new policy that has to be done under the FAST Act. We also received a public comment from Wendy from CDOT. She gave us the new numbers for the projects that are going to be happening, so we updated those. And we also worked with the project sponsors in order to put their phases in the correct years in order to keep the TIP fiscally constrained. So we used all of that stuff. We put all of that as a public comment. We also received public comment from CDOT again. They completed their call for projects, and they added 7 new projects into the TIP. Those projects are the ones that you see in yellow. If you print it out in black and white, it's probably going to be a little darker shade. Those are the new projects that we got from CDOT. 4 of those are in the faster category. They're buying ADA-compliant vehicles. 3 of those are in the regional priority category, and those are land use studies. So yeah, that really sums up everything we have from the public comments. When we emailed out your guys' packet last week, we were still in the public comment period. So the public comments that you have, it doesn't reflect everything. I do have a printout today of everything we received if you guys are interested in that. We have it in the back, so we'll have that for you afterwards. So that sums up the public comments. We had an interagency consultation on April 28th regarding our emissions. The letter of concurrence from that meeting is attached in your packet as well. So that really brings us up to speed on where we are today with the TIP. So we're getting ready to have it go before the board next month. But before we do that, there are just a few more things we need from some of you guys. The first is from Mountain Metro. We don't have any of your projects descriptions or what your projects are in our TIP at this point. So we request that you provide us with that information and also the capital and operational costs for your projects. The second is we need the new scope of work for the projects that received reduced funding. So I sent out an email to everyone last week that this affects. I think I covered everyone in those emails. So the reason that this is important is because project sponsors are liable for completing the scope of work as described in the TIP. So if we don't update the descriptions, the cost will fall on you eventually under the not one penny extra policy. So yeah, that really sums up where we are today. I want to thank you guys for working with me over the past several weeks to get this TIP fixed. As I've been trying to orient myself in this new job and this new process. So I thank you for that. If you guys have any questions, open up to that for now.
Brian?
Go ahead, Wendy. All right. I just wanted to say, you said you had 90-some comments. that came in.
Yeah.
That's many more than you've ever had, right? I mean, so I
Yeah.
applaud you all on however you got the word out and using the different methods to get public feedback. So that's a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Facebook was very effective for that. So.
Wendy?
I just wanted to tell you what a wonderful experience it was working with this young man. And I'm not being sarcastic either. This was really quite a different turn of events to be able to get this new process in place and to get your projects split and to know that the next time we looked at it, the process was going to be where we left it. It wasn't reinventing itself. It wasn't an older version. So this young man has done a lot of work to get us where we're at today. And I feel comfortable with what we have going forward, that nobody's money's lost, nobody's project is not rolling forward. We have some other issues that need to be dealt with after the end of June because of the roll forward situation that we have to deal with from a CDOT federal FHWA FEMA's perspective with some of the budgeted monies that are in projects, but that is a completely separate issue from what we have here. So I just wanted you to know that Kevin really has done an amazing job and that he needs to be given that kudos for his good heart and his long work on the process.
Wendy, I kind of wanted to reinforce that, too, because you got a tough one right off the bat as you got in here, and you're still here. That speaks a lot. And,
That's what I told him, too.
Yeah, and job well done, and you had some pretty tough things to deal with and some pretty tough people to deal with. So good job, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate
and
that.
welcome to both of you new folks, and so job well done.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that. Appreciate all that you've done. One thing, and we're still looking at this, and it's not a big deal, but on our wetland bank for the county, that project, there's money, I think, in that are showing in pre-construction that maybe need to be shown in the construction.
Okay.
Not a big deal. And then the same for Black Forest culverts. All that money was actually in construction, and right now it's showing pre-construction. But if that's the all of any changes that we have, other than the fact that we need to maybe update some, that's minor. So appreciate all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Echo the comments. I think you had a pretty tough hill to climb, and amazing.
We'll keep you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good job.
Thanks.
Any other comments, discussion? Anything from the audience? All righty then. Is there a motion? Somebody?
Go ahead.
So should I do like?
I wanted to see if
4
Jennifer
for
would do it because it seemed like the county had a lot more issues on this
I'm
than
not sure
anybody
as
else.
the chair I can do.
So,
I'd move to recommend the 2017 to 2022 Transportation Improvement Program.
Second.
Any further discussion? Anything from the audience? All those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Great job, Kevin. Item number 8, the CDOT Road X presentation. Looks like we have both Ms. Leslie Mason.
I'm Leslie Mace today.
Okay,
I'm going to do a quick introduction.
great. Thanks, Mark.
And I just want to say, this is a pretty exciting new direction for CDOT. These next 2 presentations, I think they'll wake you up. I think they'll leave a good impression with you as you go home today about some of the things that we're thinking about CDOT. Peter Kaczynski behind me is the director of Road X, and I had a conversation with him what it's like to be in his shoes, to be the first, to be the first to come up with ideas that have never been done or proven. Some of them even have even faltered, but taking other ideas and bringing those forward. So we're excited in Region 2 to be a part of that. And Leslie Mace, an excellent project manager with a lot of background in traffic. We've asked her to step in and play a key role for the region and also for the department to help bring forward some of those ideas as well. And then I just saw Jake Konanoff, and I hadn't seen him for years. Very smart individual. He's going to give a great presentation on zero deaths. So I'm not going to talk too much longer, but I'm really excited to hear about this. And I think it would be nice for other PPACG, TAC, or CAC, and BOD to hear some of this information. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Peter.
Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, much appreciate it. Probably don't need the mic, I'm a loud talker, so if I get too loud, just let me know. Really wanted to kind of give everyone an overview of what Road X is, why we at CDOT are pretty excited about it, and hopefully you can get excited about it as well. So to start, and of course technology is not going to be my friend today, right? Road X was born at our Transportation Summit late last October, and under the guidance of Shailen Bhatt, our new executive director, CDOT kind of set out with a new mission, and our new mission revolves around 3 peaks: technology, people, and system. And you can appreciate that, even though it's not represented in this picture appropriately, people is our #1 peak. Just like any organization, it lives and breathes on how hard the people work and the great things that they can do. So that's a very important peak for us. The system is what the system is. I mean, we have a lot of roadway miles out there, and we're trying our best to maintain them. I think we all appreciate our dire straits in the way of funding just to maintain our current assets, and we're looking at new ways to incorporate technologies, the 3rd peak, into doing that. And that's where my program, the Road X, falls under, is that technology peak. Because we do believe that there are opportunities for technology to solve some of the historic problems that we have. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I was kind of laughing to myself that it's great that I'm following the presentation on the long-range planning and all of the things that we're thinking about. What are we going to really be doing in 2040? I mean, it's coming fast, and hopefully at the end of this presentation you might have a different kind of perspective on what does this mean for us as a region, as a department. But ever so quickly, I'm sure you've seen these statistics before. Colorado is a pretty challenging environment to work in, and we have a solid feeling that if we can find ways to incorporate technology to solve some of our problems in urban mobility, rural safety, or freight efficiency in a Colorado environment, those will be translatable to 49 other states. So great opportunities exist for us. Here's our biggest problem, right? We're going to see population increase by close to 50%, vehicle miles traveled, significant increase, time of delay is going to climb dramatically. How can we improve this? We can't build our way out of congestion. We know that that's not an option given the financial constraints that we deal with. But we do believe that technology can really be transformational in the way of mobility, big data, connected vehicles, smart trucking, all of the problems that we see right now, we have a strong feeling can be addressed when you start to really incorporate technology. When I start talking about technology, it's really the autonomous vehicle. I mean, this is what we're kind of leaning towards. Don't know if you've been tracking where we are with autonomous vehicles, but they are coming heavy and hard, and it's going to be a game changer for us. And I think that it's our responsibility to start thinking about how they can impact our system, get them ready for the planning process, all the types of things that we do, so that when they are here, we're reaping the benefits. So, shameless plug for RoadX. So I don't know if anybody's seen this little video in the past, but I think it's still cool. So I'll watch it.
Has made breathtaking leaps from horseback and railroads to highways, all the way to the moon. Colorado's success is bound to our achievements in transportation. Today, Colorado and transportation are taking our next leap. Introducing RoadX. The Colorado Department of Transportation's RoadX initiative will seismically shift how people and goods safely move across Colorado through advances in our roadways that were just dreams several years ago. Our RoadX vision is crash-free, injury-free, congestion-free, technologically transformed travel in Colorado. With the understanding we can't build our way out of congestion, RoadX is a fast lane approach to how CDOT is working to solve our transportation issues. Right now, we're creating a connected and cooperative environment where private industry has a green light to develop and deploy the technology to transform our aging roadways, our commutes, and our city. RoadX projects will take safety and mobility to the next level, connecting vehicles, drivers, and infrastructure, allowing cars and trucks to hit the road to talk to one another, helping prevent accidents and improving traffic flow. The primary goal of RoadX is to turn our state highways into zero-death zones through smart developments, such as virtual guardrails and active infrastructure that protect against human error, saving countless lives. Through RoadX, we will jumpstart synchronized traffic flow to help get products to market quicker, boosting our economic growth. And real-time data and services will continue to transform how we utilize our roads and even how and when we travel. RoadX is Colorado's investment in the partnerships and strategies to make the next leap in transportation. And doing so will have long-term positive effects on our economy, environment, and our lives. The future of Colorado transportation is here, and with RoadX, we are paving the way.
All right, fun video, but this is really what we're talking about. I mean, all indications and all the literature suggests that when we start to see significant penetration of more autonomous vehicles, connected autonomous vehicles, this is a statistic that we really need to be focusing on. The opportunity to reduce 80% of unimpaired accidents. I mean, when we lost 540 people in Colorado alone last year, the opportunity to bring those people home, to reduce the accidents, the backups, the delays, the lost revenues that are associated with these type of accidents is too big of an opportunity for us not to start to really take advantage of. So this is a huge component for us. Not with safety out of the question. The other piece about connected autonomous vehicles is the increase in reliability, system performance that we can see out of our systems. Depending upon the literature you read and the references, you can double, if not triple, the capacity of your current infrastructure when you start to really take advantage of the vehicles talking to each other and operating in unison versus drivers tapping the brakes, looking at their phones, doing all those type of things. So those two pieces combined, a dramatic reduction in accidents and the safety benefits, plus the dramatic increase in operational efficiencies we can get out of our systems, suggests that these type of technologies are going to be game changers for us. I mean, this is pretty much, again, 280 lives, thousands of injury accidents, billions in economic costs. We have to start thinking about these type of things. This is going to be a disruptive time for us. I mean, when you start to get autonomous vehicles out there, it's going to be much like the advent of cell phones, personal computers, cloud computing, those type of things that have dramatically changed how we do business. The picture below is not, your Tesla. This is a Subaru. I mean, you've seen the commercials on TV with the the braking, the lane departure, all those things are out there today. NHTSA is going to mandate this year, hopefully in the next few weeks, that all vehicles start to be outfitted with DSRC communications, dedicated short-range communication radios, that's going to send a signal 10 times per second about its speed, trajectory, and the interoperability of its vehicles. That's going to be very important when you start to look at how you connect vehicles, they move closer together, and get those safety and reliability benefits that we see. So, don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's always good to talk about what are these different things. You hear autonomous vehicles, you hear connected vehicles, what are these things? So, ever quickly, starting at the bottom, or excuse me, top. Connected vehicle. Connectivity can happen in many different ways. A vehicle with a cell phone in it can be a connected vehicle. Any vehicle made after 2013 is fully Wi-Fi capable. They just turn that Wi-Fi off when it rolls out of the showroom. So your vehicles are connected. They can send and receive information. It's how the driver behaves and reacts to that information that is still problematic for it. Automated vehicles are vehicles that do certain things on your behalf without your direct guidance. I mean, these are the parking opportunities. This is the automatic braking thing. The vehicle takes over in certain situations and does something specifically tasked. Now, the real one is, of course, the autonomous vehicle. An autonomous vehicle will ultimately be connected also, but that's the one that can really kind of, you can zone out, you can have the vehicle do all the driving. So, quick understanding of those type of things.
Is that kind of also a timeline of, implementation?
Yes, yeah, I'm actually here on this next slide. You can kind of see kind of the progression that's anticipated with different levels of automation. So NHTSA classifies 0 to 4 in their levels of automation of vehicles. And so the level 4 is that fully autonomous vehicle. And all indications are that in the 2030 timeframe, those type of vehicles are going to be readily available for people. I'm sure, again, you guys have seen some of the stories. Uber investing $500 million in GM. Lyft is partnering up with a variety of people. Mobility as a service is going to be a huge game changer for us. I tell people you may not be owning your own car anymore. I have a little bit of trouble with that one personally. I still think I'm going to have my truck. I want to go in the mountains, but every day commuting into work, do you really need that? Maybe, maybe not. So these are the things that I think we want to start thinking about as we develop our transportation system. We look at opportunities both from a state, from a local, even from a land use planning standpoint. If you look at all of the wasted space in parking lots, parking garages, those type of things, if you have an autonomous vehicle taking you to your destination, dropping you off, and then being repurposed to pick up somebody else and do something, how much parking do you really need? Your vehicle sits idle right now 95% of the time. It's not a good investment. Second largest investment in any household. That's wasted resources and capabilities. RODEX vision and mission, crash-free, injury-free, delay-free. High aspirational statements here. It's the bottom one that's really important. We are not car manufacturers. We are not tech giants. But what we do have is we have significant assets that we can bring and allow companies that are interested in deploying this technology to use and pilot new technologies within our system. And we'll talk quickly about one of the projects that we are hoping to pilot in here in Region 2. But it's inviting partners into Colorado to do these type of things that is really exciting for us. So won't spend too much time on this. The presentation's on the computer. If you guys want to look at it in more detail, welcome any questions. But related to Region 2, we were approached by an organization that has smart pavement. They have a pavement that has technology embedded in it that they believe the pavement can send Wi-Fi signals. It can detect the speed and trajectory of a vehicle. It can even heat the pavement. A lot of interesting opportunities. We challenged that group to take that technology and put it on a rural road where we have a known run-off-the-road location, so that if a vehicle in a rural area runs off the road, the pavement will actually detect that the vehicle ran off the road and notify emergency responders. So the emergency responders can go out and ascertain if someone was in an accident as a result of running off the road. So again, these technologies are here today. We're trying to deploy them in places that need our help, and these could help solve the problems that we have, again, in urban mobility, rural safety, and freight efficiency. 3 great opportunities for us. So ran through that very quickly. happy to answer any questions or dive into any aspect of this that you might be interested in.
Where's that location in Region 2?
285 mile markers, top of the hill outside of Fairplay, kind of, those S curves.
I know what you're talking
Yep.
about.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Dave, we also have a rural bus presentation.
Oh,
You wanna go?
yeah. Great.
Sorry, we only went on as one item, but,
Sorry.
yeah, that's my
all right.
bad.
Dave.
I'm Mike Timlin today.
Oh.
I'll hand these out just in case anyone wants to take some materials with them. This is just the presentation. I'm David Averill, and I'm the Planning and Infrastructure Unit Manager within the Division of Transit and Rail at CDOT. And I'm here today to give you a little update and report on one of our bigger initiatives right now. Where is it? Where do I find the?
Slideshow?
Yeah,
Go to slideshow.
Yeah, go over to
I'm
the right.
I'm blanking.
To the
Here?
right.
No,
To the right.
Over here,
Up top.
up here.
just drop them in.
Sorry, we're in the middle.
The green triangle.
Oh, there. Bingo. Thank you very much. From the beginning. All right. So I'm here to talk about a little bit about this initiative that we have going on to develop a statewide rural regional bus network. Just as background for folks that might not know what the Division of Transit and Rail does, we receive and manage about $32 million annually per year for capital, operating, and administration. And that it's in support of the state's transit infrastructure. And that's not just CDOT projects, but also entities like Mountain Metro and small senior centers and things like that. There's a whole variety of programs, both on the state and federal side, that we manage. The 5311 program, there's a subset of it called 5311F, and that gets us about $1.6 million in federal money for rural and intercity transit operations. And then the other piece that is a part of this project is the faster operating grants, regional operating grants. And the Transportation Commission carved out $1 million of the overall faster transit program a couple of years ago to assist with that type of operation. I mentioned those two sources of funds because that's really what's driving this particular initiative, not the other programs that we manage. Within CDOT, DTR's role and mission is to plan, operate, and build a statewide transit network. Part of that is working with our grant partners, the local agencies that provide the majority of the services in the state. And a big part of the challenge there is that we have to manage the limited dollars that we have, particularly on the operating side, to maximize opportunities to expand that network at the state and local level. A little bit of background on why we're doing what we're doing with this particular initiative. The first statewide transit plan was adopted by the Transportation Commission back in March of 2015. That's rolled up into the overall statewide plan, just like all the modal plans are, the bike plan, the aviation plan, freight plan, et cetera. And that transit plan really geared and steered us towards looking for projects that increase intermodal transit connectivity, make transit more time competitive with the automobile. That's always the big challenge. Maximize mobility needs and system efficiency of what's out there, and then overall reduce VMT and greenhouse gas emissions. The other big planning effort that informed this initiative, this development of the rural regional network, was the statewide intercity and regional bus network plan from a couple years back. And that identified the goals and needs for development, station area, identified stations and connectivity needs of the rural regional network, shined a light on some policy, performance, and financing issues that we're dealing with and wading through, working on. And then defined a preferred network for that intercity and regional bus system throughout the state. So we have to have a mission for this. And so the mission for this particular project is to develop a statewide network of private and public services, and I'll touch on that in a little bit, that addresses both regional and intercity trip needs. We want to use existing services that are out there and look at new services where possible, if it becomes possible for us. We really need to look at offering the convenient regional mobility between the urban and rural areas. We heard that a lot in the statewide transit plan process. And then part of our strategy here is really going to rely on maintaining connections to the national and international locations, not just the intercity bus network, but other modes as well. And again, it's based on what we learned through the ICB network study and the statewide plan. So something happened back in 2004, and the intercity bus companies, like Greyhound is probably the biggest one in the state, started shedding all these rural stops, and most of the states hit hardest were west of the Mississippi. The population isn't as dense. They didn't see it as enticing to serve these states, and I think in Colorado we lost. I was very new at the game, the profession at this point, but I think we lost 4 or 5 routes just of Greyhound alone back then. So that was a problem because a lot of these rural areas all of a sudden no longer had service, and it's important to have service like this. So under Safety Lou, the next bill that came around, they started a pilot program that allowed the bigger companies like Greyhound to provide the unsubsidized capital and operating miles as in-kind match towards the local match for the overall 5311F program. To entice operators to reinstate that lost rural service. Those of you that do projects know what it can be, what struggle it can be to come up with local match. So this was a way to use assets that the Greyhound had been unsubsidized, was using as unsubsidized capital to provide the local match for us, essentially. That carried through in the FAST Act, so there's no change on that pilot program. And the FAST Act also continues the federal policy of requiring 15% of our overall 5311. 5311 is for rural public transportation. As I mentioned before, there's a subset of it, 5311F. We're mandated to do 15% of our 5311 program into 5311F. And that supports intercity bus services for rural areas. In the 2016 FAST Act, that's $1.65 million available for 5311F for Colorado. The FAST Act, you see modest increases of about 2% on the overall programs. I'm not going to sit here and say that's going to allow us to expand services. 2% is a nominal increase, and increasing costs often outstrip that. So there's probably not a whole lot of opportunity there to expand with that. What we've also seen, and we heard this a lot through the transit plan development process, was that there's some challenges in Colorado for people even using intercity bus in this type of service. And one of them is their really long distance travel and inconvenient schedules. There's sometimes a situation where the only time to catch the bus is at 2 in the morning, and that doesn't really work for folks. It's not very reasonable to ask them to do that if they have a trip they have to make. The services are a little bit disjointed from a marketing and branding standpoint. There's not a common or well-aligned brand out there, not one website you can go to even link up trips between the different operators and things like that. It's just a challenge. Something that's been hitting us on the 5311F program is that the cost of the capital, the cost to buy the bus, is often operationalized in the service. So then we're paying for the bus and the service, and that tends to hit us pretty hard too, and it hurts us on the operating side. And then, of course, the lack of connectivity between rural parts of the state and activity centers. Some parts of the state are connected very well, others aren't, and so we're looking at that as a department to try to increase that connectivity. So those are the challenges we've been dealing with, and a little bit more background on the whole intercity bus program. We're taking a hard look at flipping our entire 5311F program on its head. We've been running that program forever as a grant program, meaning folks come to us and they say, I want to provide a service between X and Y, and can you give me the operating subsidy? That's been resulted in some of these challenges of the not common brand, the lack of a cohesive network, and things like that. We're going to take a cue from Washington. This is what we're looking at. We want to run that 5311F program as a competitive bid program. The closest thing I can point to as an example is Bustang. That is a program where CDOT owns the buses. We identified routes that we wanted served and put together a schedule, and the private sector responded and bid on that. We had 4 really competitive bids come in for Bustang, and one operator won it. But the idea there is that if you can create that element of competition and also own the capital and lease it to the operators, then we should theoretically see lower costs on the operating side, which is what we're looking for. So as Washington did, that's what we're trying to do as well. And also, just so you're aware, we are talking to FTA along with this, since it is an FTA program. They're quite comfortable with our approach thus far, so that's the path we're on. We want to mimic the success that Washington's had since 2007, and it's fairly proven at this point, to create that more competitive environment. If we do realize cost savings, that will give us the opportunity to potentially expand the network over time. And it also allows us to address multiple markets and needs that aren't met today. So that connectivity is top of mind. And then the regional travel needs for day trips to regional centers. We often hear, yeah, I can get to a regional center, but then I can't get back that night. I can go in for my doctor's appointment, but then I got to spend the night, which is a huge hardship for someone that has to travel for medical trips anyway. So those are the kind of things that we're hoping to solve. And essentially it's doing what we're doing today, but better is the goal. So we're being fairly deliberate about this, and this is part of the conversation. This is why we're going to all the MPOs in the state and all the TPRs in the state, the Transportation Planning Regions. We really want to consider both markets, the intercity bus, which is sort of the nationwide traveler, if you will, and then regional services, which are a little bit more homegrown customers. We have to understand the operating and scheduling constraints that we're dealing with, not just for Bustang, but Greyhound. We have a very good relationship with Greyhound. We hope to maintain that. Mike Timlin, who is our our bus operations manager, he's the manager for Bustang, worked for Greyhound for over 30 years, retired from there, he came to work for us. So we've got a pretty good connection to Greyhound, and that's good. It's helping us. There are some proposed rural, regional, statewide services. We'll look at a series of maps here in a minute, and we can show you some of the ones that are sort of in play right now. And then we also want to make sure that we're not stepping on anyone's toes at the local level, that we're tying into them effectively, because transit works really well when systems are connected, both schedule-wise and just where they meet and things like that. As I mentioned before, the overall strategy and the success of this is going to really be hinged on maximizing that local funding and Greyhound in-kind match. We don't want to jeopardize that. We're going to do everything we can to maximize that. We're trying to figure out fare structures and ticketing and customer information. How does that all work together for this disparate network all across the state? Is it a common fare? Is it by region? Does it vary? There's equity questions around that kind of thing that we're talking about. So a lot going on there. And then if we do have an opportunity to expand, we need to figure out prioritization criteria for where we would expand and when, using that 5311F operating money and faster regional operating assistance. I said earlier that the FASTER program allows up to $1 million a year annually for regional operating assistance, and that's going to hold true. We had 5 project proposals for that first round, and we funded 2 of those services with Fort Collins, the flex service between Fort Collins and Longmont, now going to Boulder, actually. And then the Steamboat Springs Transit runs a commuter service from Craig into Steamboat, out west of Steamboat there. Very, very popular routes. I mention this because the 3 we said no to are very good services as well. Gunnison Valley Regional Transit Authority that runs service between Gunnison and Crested Butte. Eco Transit runs services all up and down I-70, and then RAFTA, the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority, the nation's largest rural transit provider. We said no to those, and I'm only mentioning that as an illustration that we set the bar very high for faster regional operating assistance, and there were only 2 projects that we felt like kind of got to that level. This $500,000 is still in play. In fact, we have an open call for projects right now. People could apply for it, but if they don't, and we don't see projects that meet that standard, we're probably going to roll it into this program. But I want to mention that because there are probably some folks around the state that are potentially interested in doing that. Now, the hard part with operating dollars is that it's hard to say yes one year and then no the next, right? You're not going to pull the rug out from underneath somebody. So we're looking at the routes that we are funded with performance metrics, and if they don't keep performing, we're gradually going to dial back our participation in those routes. So that package of routes could come and go over the years, but we want to try to keep it as steady as possible just because operating environment is so difficult. But anyway, those are the issues we're grappling with. So the next series of maps is showing the network as it is today. So the unsubsidized intercity bus network. This is Greyhound, some of the Hispanic carriers, Los Paisanos, LA Limousine Express, Aero Stage Lines, Black Hills Express, those private entities doing business in the state, and we're not subsidizing. They're just out there doing their thing. These are profitable routes for them, and this is sort of the private sector take, I guess, if you will, of the intercity network. There's a layer of this on top of here. This is what we would call regionally operated by local transit agencies. So up there in the north, you see the flex route that I mentioned, and also the Steamboat Springs route. but they're kind of all over the state. Northeast Council of Governments operates a route, ECOG out on the Eastern Plains. SCCOG runs between Trinidad and Pueblo. The SUCAP, Southern Ute Community Action Program down in the southwest there runs services in from Ignacio into Durango. And then, of course, there's Gunnison Valley, RTA there in the middle, and Summit Stage, ECO, and RAFTA. So these are systems that we are subsidizing, but through the 5311 program, not 5311F. It gets a little confusing, alphabet soup. But these folks are 5311 grant partners of ours, and we do help them out on the operating and capital side. This is the subsidized intercity bus network. So the red line that you see in the northwest is a route that actually went away when Greyhound pulled out in 2004. We worked with them to bring that route back. That route runs from Denver to Salt Lake City through Steamboat. That's one of those that's really weird timing. You talk to people in Steamboat, they're like, yeah, it's great it goes to Denver, but it leaves at like 5 at night. I have to spend the night if I want to do anything there, and vice versa. And that can be difficult, you know, with the intercity carriers. I mean, any kind of schedule change that you would implement has a ripple effect all the way to LA, you know. So it's tough to have a lot of leverage with those folks on that one. You know, there's several carriers in there. I don't need to read them all off to you, but we've got everything from the big classic systems like Greyhound to more of a local homegrown system like the Chafee Shuttle that operates out of Salida, goes into Pueblo on occasion. So that's the map of basically what our 5311F grantees right now, right? So these are the routes that we think we still want to do, but we want to bid them out competitively. Okay. Proposed basic rural regional network. So this is Greyhound. And then there's other services that we just looked at. It's not a whole, again, we're not proposing to come out of the gate and change any of their routes or anything like that. It's just how we're doing the business of them. So again, we want to do what we're doing today, but do it better and hopefully realize some cost savings and potentially expand it. And that's what gets me to, well, this is the one with the local services laid over on the top. So you can see how they're all kind of starting to stitch together. We're getting just about everywhere. In my mind, I see clearing gaps along the southern border with New Mexico. East-west is pretty tough. You know, it's a long trip from Durango into Grand Junction and then into Denver via transit. I'm not sure the market supports much down there, but we're looking pretty hard at trying to be equitable about where we're putting these services. These are the routes and the potential expansion that have jumped out at us through the planning process. So connections from the northwest of Colorado, Steamboat down into I-70, we heard was very, very important to the Northwest TPR. I was just up there giving this presentation to the TPR late last month and heard the same thing over. So they're pretty keen on seeing those connections. Folks in Region 10 and the area around Montrose are very keen on seeing a connection between Gunnison and Montrose in that highway corridor there. You know, Bustang's still going to be a part of it. And then the route you see up on the northeast would be something that's a little bit more meaningful than the current schedule that's coming through there. And in fact, the route that runs through there right now, we're subsidizing Black Hills stage lines, and it's a profitable route. So we're taking a really hard look at why we're doing that, to be honest. And we found out it's interesting. They make most of their money on freight in that corridor. I guess there's a Dairy Farmers of America distribution center up there that puts out the advertisements and stuff like that, and they carry that freight, and they get a ton of money from it. It's not so much passengers riding it. Aren't a lot of passengers riding it in Colorado because it's a pretty inconvenient schedule. So we're looking at, that's one of them that we're trying to fix, I guess you could say. So those, and then that we're getting a fair amount of pressure to either expand Bustang down to Pueblo or come up with an alternative solution that might not be that same level of service as Bustang, but at least provide that connection. We're talking to Pueblo Transit and South Central COG about that. So the areas that we're diving into, and this is kind of the meat of it, and this is if anybody's got any thoughts or concerns, you know, please chime in there. But you know, these are the questions we're asking all around the state. You know, what level of service is needed in the corridors? Some of them, if it's just basic human services, transportation, and access, you know, you might be able to get away with 3 days a week. We have some operations that are out there doing that right now. If it's more of a commuter service, should it be 5 days a week, and then 7 days a week if you've got the full market, the commuter market and recreational market. We learned that out on the I-70 route with Bustang pretty quickly. We actually went to 7 days a week already on that one back in November. Consequently, you know, we weren't targeting the recreational market with that at all, but people figured out how to use a combination of Bustang and Greyhound to use it to go skiing. People will figure it out if they want to figure it out. That's just great. But we're not targeting those recreational markets with Bustang, just for the record. So another question is, does the trip like into Colorado Springs or Pueblo provide adequate time at regional centers? In other words, if you take the bus in, do you actually have time to go to your medical appointments and then catch the ride back? Or is the route so tight on schedule that they get there and they got to head right back out right away? That's a problem in some areas. Forces that overnight stay that might not be otherwise necessary. Are the schedules being meaningful and convenient? What does that look like in real life? And again, to maintain that partnership with Greyhound and the other large carriers on the in-kind match, can we maintain those connections and not jeopardize their schedule and create a bunch of consternation because they're having to react to something that we want? That kind of thing is driving the scheduling conversation. On the fare side, there's kind of a classic, I wouldn't say conundrum, but debate within the transit system, business is that do you work to build a system that maximizes fare box recovery or that maximizes ridership by using lower fares? I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive. You can do both, but it's pretty tough. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at is a productivity versus coverage model, essentially is what we're trying to develop or get the answer to. What type of fare medium should be employed? And do we have ticket agents or do you buy them online? We've got a little bit of experience under our belt now with Bustang. We've done we're looking at that very closely. We're coming up on 1 year of service with that. Pre-ticket sales there have been great. People are buying multiple ride tickets, and we see something like that working on this model as well. Again, the top of mind question always at the department, not just within DTR, but the overall department is, what role should equity considerations play in how we roll this out? We want to treat everybody fairly, but we also don't want to put services out there that people aren't using and can't use. It's not just not something just to put out there and say, now you've got transit. We need to look at the equity considerations. One big question for us is, should there be a threshold or a cap for the maximum subsidy amount? We kind of have done that on the faster regional operating assistance already. We've already capped those awards at $200,000 or 50% of the operating cost, whichever is less. So we're looking at that with the 5311F program as well. And then how important should connections to local transit systems be in the decisions? If you ask me, I think it's very important. I think, again, when transit systems are tied together, they provide more opportunity for people to use them. So I think that's pretty important. But at the same time, if we can't get the local schedule to jive with our schedule and that somehow impacts Greyhound, then we've got a bigger problem because that ripple effects across the entire intercity bus network. So it's important, but it might be tricky in some cases. So we're working our way through that stuff. Does anybody have any questions that we should be asking that we're not? I guess is a good question I can ask folks. Is there something that, we've got some experts in the room. I'm looking at Brian. I'm looking at Craig, and others too. But is there something that we ought to be thinking about, in your opinion, that I haven't mentioned?
Well, my curiosity would be, how are you tying into some of the unofficial bus networks that run? Unofficial. That are running lower economic stratus people around. Are you looking at any of those?
I'm not sure I'm following you. Give me an example of what that would be.
I can't think of the name of it, but it runs from Albuquerque, Trinidad, Pueblo, Colorado Springs,
Even all the way to
Americana. Yeah.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to look at their schedules and approach them. I don't have any contacts with them, and I haven't been able to garner that for years. It's quite strange. But
I think you just have to be where they stop.
which is a guess some days. Yeah.
We stop at the off-ramp there at, I think it's exit 11 in Trinidad.
Okay.
I've seen them there several times.
Yeah, and I know that they've been working in and out of Greeley a little bit too, so I think we might have some inroads with them. I would explore it, but I don't know that it's not jumped out at us yet. But I appreciate that.
I'm just curious where those folks go once they get off that bus and get on route.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've got a number of stops like that in mind. Like, where do people go when they get off here? Anybody else?
This is interesting because I was just in Washington myself. They have a pretty targeted network there, and then they also really have a good coordination with their light rail system. So I know that you guys do that as well, but there's always been a lot of discussion about future light rail at some point coming to south of Denver. And, are you looking at that in your longer range plans?
I think so. Yeah. And we can keep looking at it too. When, like I said, if we can tie into systems, it's always better. So we'll always look for those opportunities. Nothing else? Okay. So this is where we're at. It's spring still, almost summer, and this is our sort of traveling roadshow to talk to the TPRs and MPOs. And of course, this meeting is not your only opportunity. If you need to get if you have a eureka moment after the fact or something comes up, feel free to get a hold of us and let us know. We are gearing up for TC approval in August, so later this summer. And that will be approval of the operating plan, the network plan, and then we have a capital package that's going along with this. Just for everyone's knowledge, we plan to pay for the capital, the buses, and park and ride improvements that we're doing with the Senate Bill 228 funds that have been allocated to CDOT for transit purposes. So that's our capital source for there. We're going to start working on a bus specification. A note on this one is that we're not thinking about the same size buses as Mustang, those big 40-foot coaches. There's a couple other manufacturers, smaller ones that are still over-the-road coaches, 30, 35-footers, and we think that depending on what our demand analysis looks like in these corridors, we want to right-size the vehicles to the service, so we don't want to run big buses unless we have to. But we're going to work on that bus spec and then get out to bid for that. That's probably an 18-month process just for the bid, and then building and manufacturing the buses. They take forever. No bus is a off-the-shelf product. They're all custom, right? So it takes them time to tool up and get that done. To me, the biggest thing is going to be developing those service contracts. As I mentioned yesterday when I was at North Front Range MPO giving this talk, Aaron was there. We, in some ways, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, but we kind of broke CDOT in a number of ways with Mustang. We didn't really have a way to take in revenue. We've never done that before as a department. How do you monitor that type of operations service? And so we learned a lot of lessons, both internally and externally with our contractor. So that service contract piece is going to be a lot of work for us. And I got to say also that I think in all probability, I don't see us doing this in one fell swoop across the state. We're a very small division. Our planning group within DTR is 4 of us. And just as a scale of matter of reference, the DTD planning group is 16 people, and that's the size of our division. So we're going to be working pretty hard on this, but I think it's going to take a lot of time and maybe some extra resources to get the service contracts in place, go through that bid process and everything else. And then I think what we'll end up doing is probably packaging routes. So we won't just do one at a time here or there. We might do 3 together in an effort to generate interest from that private sector, our partners in the private sector. Because if you're looking at it from their perspective, if they're operating a route in Durango and another one over near Pueblo, but they got to have 2 maintenance centers or something like that, that's not going to make a lot of sense. So we want to try to bundle them and package them in ways that make sense and maybe create some efficiencies for the private providers. And I think it'll probably be early calendar year 2018 before we can roll any of these out. Okay. Mike Timlin's project manager. I'm probably co-project manager. Again, David Averill. I can leave contact. I think Craig's got my contact info if anybody needs to get a hold of me on anything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate you.
Thanks for your time.
Any other questions for Dave before you? Thank you. We appreciate you coming down.
Yeah.
Yes.
No problem. Anytime.
Have a nice drive back.
What's that?
Have a nice drive back. It's
I
a
will.
beautiful day.
I want to know if he's taking the bus.
I come from Fort Collins every day down to, not every day, but I leave so early that Mustang's not running yet. I'm out of my house at 4:30 a.m.
Sounds like you need to talk to DTR.
Yeah, I need to talk to Mike. I need to talk to Mike. It's ironic when the state planning manager can't catch the bus.
That is.
Thank you. Item number 9, Vision Zero Safety Presentation.
And while the gentlemen from Diaxis are setting up, I'll give a brief summary. One of the requirements of FAST is looking at safety. We're going to have some federal and state, and then we'll have to come up with our own regional safety analyses and goals, performance management. We were put in touch with Diaxis 2 months ago because we've been exploring, well, what are we going to do with our next plan? We're already gearing up for the next plan. And they were recommended to us. They came and gave us a presentation of the tool they have. And we found it to be pretty impressive and wanted to share it with you because not only will it allow us to do our job better, but we think it will help you with your jobs. And so, Jake, I guess I'll let you start and then.
Very honored to be here. Thank you very much for taking your time to listen to us. We hope to offer something exciting in the area of safety. As we connect to the screen, we'll spend about maybe 30 seconds in self-serving propaganda and then move on to fundamentals of safety and then apply these fundamentals to various safety problems in this part of the state. Vision Zero Suite is the name of the management system. Name of our company is DIAXIS. It stands for Diagnostic Expert Systems. We provide consulting services in Wyoming, Montana, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado DOT. Our system is fully deployed at Colorado DOT, Douglas County, Jefferson County, Arapahoe, and Adams counties, as well as cities of Lakewood, Denver, Aurora, Arvada, Federal Heights, and Greeley. We also consult in Arizona, Alabama. We're getting into Queensland Ministry of Transport in Australia, and also we consult in the country of Italy. Anyway, done with self-serving propaganda, and we can get on to something more exciting. How to measure safety. In order to manage safety effectively, we need to be able to measure it. How much safety can we expect in this part of the state? How many crashes are too many? How much safety for how much money can we obtain? What is normal and what is abnormal? These are the kinds of questions we hope to help you answer. And these are fundamental questions. Let's look at safety performance, let's say, for instance, of signalized intersections. Somewhat unorthodox approach, I must admit. Here's a young man. He looks fairly fit. 26-year-old male, 164 pounds, systolic blood pressure 110, diastolic 65. He's not on medication. Does he have high blood pressure? What do you guys think? Okay. No. Anybody thinks that's hypertension? All right. And I think we all agree. We look at the vital signs of a particular patient, and we built a consensus about his relative state of health, more or less instantly. And let's look at the IRS employee, for instance, 20 years of experience, 43-year-old male, 264 pounds, 180 systolic, over 100 diastolic. What do you guys think about this particular patient? Is he healthy? Anybody thinks this is a picture of health? Nobody does. I think we, again, have more or less instant consensus, and we looked at the vital signs, we examined the patient, and we all agree. Does anybody here have training in internal medicine or cardiology? Anybody? EMS technician? Who can do first aid? Thank you. All right, see if we can do the same with a transportation facility from a safety standpoint and quantify the magnitude of the problem explicitly. Urban 4-leg, 6-lane divided, signalized intersection, fully lighted. The main line carries about 60,000 cars a day, east-west, in 6 lanes. And the side road carries 18,000 cars a day, north-south, in 4 lanes. So over a period of a year, 365 days a year, we pump about 28 million vehicles through this particular intersection. Now, 5-year crash history, 157 property damage, only crashes, 63 injuries. We had no fatals. So per year on the average, we have about 12 injury crashes and 44 total crashes. So we have geometrics, traffic control, traffic exposure, and safety data about a specific transportation facility, in this case, a junction. Would you consider this a safety problem location? What do you guys think? There's not a wrong answer to this, but intuitively, could somebody volunteer their impression? I would be grateful. Anybody? Yes?
Seems about average.
Average, kind of like Lake Wobegon. Now, any other views on the subject? I mean, we're all in transportation business, right? And we were able to very accurately assess hypertension in a healthy person. But from a safety standpoint, it's not that easy to quantify what is and what is not a safety problem. The next step is, well, safety performance of an intersection can be viewed as some function of mainline traffic and a side road traffic, right? So that's what that function looks like graphically for this particular facility. So in this particular case, on the main line we carry about 60,000 cars a day. On a side road, 18,000 cars a day. And on the average, in the state of Colorado, in an urban environment, at 4-leg, 6-lane divided signalized intersection, we expect about 32 crashes per year. And what we are observing is 44. So clearly, this is not a healthy patient from a safety standpoint. So what we need a quantitative frame of reference to assess the magnitude of the safety problem at intersections and segments in urban and rural environments. What is normal at a 4-lane intersection is abnormal at a 6-lane intersection. What is normal on the 2-lane rural segments in eastern Colorado is abnormal for a similar segment in the mountains. So every piece of road in Colorado has its own calibrated safety fingerprint, which we could describe from a standpoint of frequency and severity. And these fingerprints are known as safety performance functions, and all of them have been calibrated over the years for all facilities in the state of Colorado. So in case of intersection, we would slice them at a side road ADT, and we would produce these two-dimensional graphs that would aid us in assessment of the magnitude of the safety problem. Now that leads us to an idea of level of service of safety. We have a level of service of mobility on a scale of A through F, and we also have a level of service of safety on a scale of 1 through 4. Every segment or an intersection could be described from perspective of frequency or severity. For instance, some intersections may have average frequency but high severity. Yet other intersections may have high frequency of crashes but low severity. So we need to have two safety performance functions for every Colorado facility. For every intersection and every segment, we have two functions to help us to assess the magnitude of the safety problem. So that's what the function looks like for segments, for instance. The bottom 20% is what we call level of service of safety 1. It has low potential for crash reduction. What it means, we can spend money in the name of safety, but we're not going to prevent very many crashes. Level of service of safety 2 has low to moderate potential for crash reduction, and that's between the mean and the 20th percentile. Level of service of safety 3, moderate to high potential. Level of service of safety 4, high potential for crash reduction. So that's from a standpoint of overall frequency. And we have the same framework from the standpoint of severity. So we could now describe the magnitude of the problem of any intersection or any segments in the state of Colorado using safety performance functions that are Colorado-specific and region-specific. Now, why would we need such a concept? Qualitatively describes and quantitatively assesses the degree of safety or unsafety of a segment or an intersection. So very quickly we can build a consensus on potentially highly emotive issue in the framework of a public hearing, for instance. It communicates the magnitude of a safety problem at a segment or an intersection to other professionals, elected officials, law enforcement personnel, media, public, etc. So right away, we would know what is and what is not a safety problem. And another good reason, it provides a frame of reference for decision-making on non-safety motivated projects. Most of construction in the state of Colorado, or anywhere for that matter, is not funded with just safety money. Yet we still have to make safety decisions within scope of any project. It could be ITS, or operations, or widening, or reconstruction, or resurfacing, or realignment, or any kind of transportation effort has a safety dimension, and the concept of the level of service of safety enables us to assess the magnitude of the problem. Do you guys have any questions, anything I should explain? I hope it makes sense. Now, so far we've spoken about the magnitude of the problem, but not about its nature. In this example, in your region, and I think Peter Kaczynski mentioned this piece of road earlier today, shows the diagnostic process to identify the nature of the problem. So we will use an example to illustrate how it is done. Let's say we will define project limits, 19 miles of road, northeast of Fairplay. It's a 2-lane, flat and rolling rural arterial. So we performed level of service of safety analysis, and we could see elevated frequency of crashes. If we were to do that for severity, very similar undesirable performance. So what we know about this patient, that is, vital signs of this patient are not that good. But we don't know what is the nature of the problem. Elevated blood pressure or body temperature may have to do with somebody having a triple espresso after lunch, or kidney malfunction. We don't know what's wrong. So we need to engage in rigorous diagnostics. And for that purpose, of course, we have safety performance function for every facility. Additionally, to aid in diagnostic, we have 3 groups of diagnostic norms. And they're subdivided into 3 groups because we have low, medium, and high range of congestion that would influence crash type, severity, and all kinds of other attributes related to crash occurrence. So there are 11 different boxes, and they're rolled out into 84 Colorado-specific norms. In this case, mid-range ADT for flat and rolling rural 2-lane arterials. So these 84 norms help us to determine the deviation from any one of those norms. What are these norms? Crash type, road condition, weather condition, driver behavior. All kinds of attributes are compiled 3 times into 3 sets of norms for each intersection, for each segment, and also for intersections. So these are diagnostic norms. If you've seen your blood test recently, you will find, for instance, that triglycerides or cholesterol is segregated by age, and it gave us a clue that perhaps these norms would need to be stratified by degree of congestion. If you have a 2-lane rural road in Colorado and you carry 300 cars a day, the head-on percent is going to be less than 1%. But if you carry 14,000 cars a day on a 2-lane rural road, then the head-on percent may well be over 7. So unless we know that the norms are changing, our diagnostic process will not be very effective. For that reason, we segregated sets of diagnostic norms into 3 groups: low congestion, medium, and high. So here's how this works. And all of these norms are encoded within Vision Zero Suite, and I will skip through them, and we will now show you in this particular 19-mile stretch. As magnifying glass moves up the screen, it performs thousands and thousands of statistical tests for deviation from 84 very specific means. And if anything is abnormal, we're going to find it. In this particular case, we have 2 crash patterns: icy road and wind. The nature of the problem, the elevated frequency, has nothing to do with geometric design or traffic operation or shoulder widths or side slopes. It has everything to do with very rapid icing for which the drivers are not prepared to react. So the countermeasure should be Road X-like initiatives, roadway sensors, variable message signs, snow fences, intensified maintenance, These treatments are then in response to a very specific problem, not to our perception of the problem, but in response to its nature. Okay? Any questions so far about assessing the magnitude of the problem using safety performance function in its nature using pattern recognition algorithms? All of that is fully deployed, by the way, by Colorado DOT. Colorado Safety Knowledge Base looks like this. Let's say these are the curves for four-lane, four-leg divided, signalized urban intersection, injury and fatal only crashes. These are all crashes. These are underlying diagnostic norms. And at this point, I could illustrate another example. This is Highway 40 in Denver, Colfax and York. We perform level of service of safety analysis, and we predict 18 crashes for this location, and we observe 18. So at this point, we may say there's nothing wrong. We're average. Well, does it mean there is not a problem we could address in a cost-effective manner? It says plug in. How much time we have left on the power? So in this case, we still perform diagnostics. Distribution by crash type shows that broadsides represent 36% of all crashes at this signalized intersection. Is this normal? Is this abnormal? In fact, when we consult a set of diagnostic norms, we will learn that broadsides should not represent any more than 12.6% of all crashes. When we examine the issue further, we will find that signal head for westbound traffic is obstructed by a beautiful stand of trees. Not surprisingly, the crashes occur in between April and October, and most of the broadsides are in a westbound direction. If we look at the street side view, you will then find that the line of sight is completely obstructed by a tree, and you cannot see a signal head in a westbound direction. So a solution is intuitive and quite simple and inexpensive. But we started from a safety performance function, then we went on with a diagnostic examination, and only then did we develop a countermeasure. At this point, with your permission, we will activate Vision Zero Suite and study safety at the entire city of Colorado Springs. In fact, we're going to examine all fatal crashes at all intersections in Colorado Springs and see what is emerging. So as computer does that, it actually looks at all fatal crashes at all intersections in the city of Colorado Springs. It will take additional 20 seconds, and then we will know exactly what kind of crash types are prevalent in fatal accidents at intersections. Almost done. As it performs, quite a bit of computation.
Assumedly, this is based upon data that you got from PPACG?
We got it from statewide crash data.
Gotcha.
Let's look at the distribution of crashes by type. All right. Maybe a little hard to see, even in my glasses, but the most frequent fatal crash type at intersections in the city of Colorado Springs is what's called approach turn. Basically, a vehicle tries to make a left, and misjudges the gap. And that's what it looks like if somebody's trying to make a left on green during a permitted operation, misjudges the gap, in this case, eastbound direction. This kind of crash is what we call in Colorado approach turn crash, and it is the most fatal crash at intersections in the city of Colorado Springs. It isn't so in Denver and other cities, but in Colorado Springs, that's at intersections, that's the crash type that produces the most number of fatal crashes. Yes, sir?
For the green arrow or the red arrow?
It's no arrow. It's a green ball. You're looking for a gap in
No, I
the...
mean, which one dies more? Car.
Oh, well, it depends. It depends on the car or age or a seat belt, but the crash occurrence is linked to this maneuver.
Gotcha.
And sometimes one person is killed and 3 are injured. Sometimes one person is killed, 1 person injured. Sometimes 2 people are killed. But that's random. So, and that's the broadside. It is not as severe in Colorado Springs as the left turn opposite crash, which we call approach turn. Now let's get back into the system. And what we're going to do, we will look at the location of all approach turn crashes in the city of Colorado Springs. And it will take us about 40 to 50 seconds. I apologize for the delay, but that's what it would take. So we will look at all of the intersection-related crashes, all the approach turns at the entire city. So at intersection, let's check the filter just to be sure. At intersections or intersection related, then we need to look at approach turn only. And we look at all crash type at this point. Yeah. And now we can initiate the citywide search, and it will take, let's look at the default, perhaps. Is it default on? Let's check the default. Yeah, it's disable highway. It's this one here. Yeah, that's it. Then it should give us a citywide search. He cannot see the screen. Okay. So it will take, again, maybe 40 seconds till we get all of those locations identified. And then we will pick 1 or 2 and see if they're susceptible to cost-effective correction. You see, these fatal crashes, some are random tragic events, yet many are predictable and preventable patterns that we can easily identify using Vision Zero Suite analytics. So in another 20 seconds, we will know where all of those crashes are. And then we will examine 1 or 2 in greater detail and see just how susceptible they are to cost-effective countermeasure. Because clearly the goal is to maximize crash reduction within constraints of available budget. We cannot fix every problem, but our goal is to make the most with what we have. That is the challenge. So we are almost there.
I think we're going through about 120,000 crashes per year.
Right.
For 6 years to just look for just the approach turns within Colorado Springs.
Yep. So I don't think we're almost there. Takes a while. Okay, let's look at distribution of approach turn crashes in Colorado Springs. Let's click distribution by crash type. Severity, I'm sorry. Let's look at the severity of left turn crash in the city of Colorado Springs. As you can see, 42.2% are injury and 0.5% are fatal. I must say this is significantly greater than anywhere else in the state of Colorado for some reason or other. So let's now choose a location or 2 and examine how susceptible it is to correction. Let's create a listing of all of those locations and pick 1 and analyze it in greater detail. And it will give us an idea how effective we could be in identifying and preventing those crashes. And all right, that's a listing. And on the right, it gives you the location. So we are going to go and look for something that looks like a cluster and examine it further. See if I could see it. I cannot see it from where I'm at. Yeah, we're at the boulder, so it keeps on going. Okay, let's say we choose Barnes and Tuck in Colorado Springs and analyze it in greater detail. So let's go back and close that default, Brian. And we will look at the location of Barnes and Tut, which is a signalized 4-leg, 4-lane divided signalized facility. Barnes and Tut at intersection only crashes, I believe. Should take about 5 seconds or so. And yes, we will do full diagnostics. Let's look at distribution by crash type at a glance. 53.8% of all crashes at this signalized intersection are left turn opposite related, which we call approach turn. Let's assess the magnitude of the problem and then proceed with full diagnostics. So we look at the safety performance function for that facility. And the side road ADT is 10,000, the main line ADT 21,000. So let's look first at,
I'm trying to get to the, there we go.
got it, 21,000 on Barnes and about 10,000 on Top. Full scale. And let's take a look what safety performance looks like. And as you can see, quite a bit above the mean from the standpoint of overall frequency. Let's do the same for the severity. Severity is very significantly above the norm. And when I say above the norm, I am comparing it with all other similar urban intersections in the state of Colorado with similar amount of traffic and number of lanes. So we have elevated frequency and elevated severity. Let's look at the full diagnostic examination and then see how susceptible it is to correction. It will only take a second or two. Again, we open the diagnostics and we perform full diagnostic examination, kind of like a blood test and an x-ray and everything else. So I think we have to close the other, okay, got it. So we choose a set of norms representing the norms for this particular facility type.
Good thing my eyes aren't too bad.
Much better than mine for sure. Let's set up this thresholds. And in about 2 seconds, we will have a diagnostic report. At this point, let's move it to the middle of the screen. 100% suggest it is highly abnormal.
The pointer will work.
Oh, it does work. Terrific. The left turn opposite crash, its frequency, given the total number of crashes, and the number of crashes is highly abnormal. And let's examine the approach turn only at this location and see which direction this is happening. So we will now filter for just the approach turn crashes. And is it east-west, north-south? Because before we start fixing it, we need to know which vehicle at fault. Who is misjudging the gap in the opposite flow of traffic? All right. Let's look at distribution by direction. All right, so over 84% almost of all left turn crashers are east-west direction. Let's look how severe they are. At this location alone, let's look at the number of people injured of some relevance. At this location alone in Colorado Springs, 49 people were injured trying to make a left turn, and 1 person was killed, just at this one location alone. And we could prevent at least 90% of these crashes. 90%. Now, let's examine how cost-effective this would be to changing phasing or rebuilding the signal. And before we do that, let's examine the signal itself. That's what the intersection looks like, and geometrically, it is perfectly designed. Operationally, deeply flawed. Well, we have 6 lane of through traffic, high speed, not congested at all. when you have 21,000 cars in 6 lanes, you can travel 55 miles an hour, no trouble at all.
They can do 70 there.
Huh?
You can do 70.
You could if you wish. Now, geometrically, very well designed. Operationally, it has potential for safety improvement. Let's examine signal heads. No back plates, permitted protected operation. So we know that the pattern is very, very strong. A potential countermeasure may be rebuilding with mast arms and protecting the left turn. And an interim measure would be converting phasing to permitted protected during the time of day when this is occurring. So simple and highly cost-effective countermeasures that are aimed at a very specific problem. Now, let's go back and analyze potential cost effectiveness. Let's say we are going to just change the phasing for now to protected only. And we will go to the library of crash modification factors. We choose fully protected, return, and then in this case, it's going to cost, I don't know, $1,000 in crude time, really. That's all it's going to take, if you like. And then a benefit cost analysis suggests a benefit cost ratio of 7,000 to 1. So clearly, it's highly cost effective if you want to spend money in the name of safety. Now, let's consider something more ambitious in terms of construction. Let's consider rebuild, mast arm, et cetera.
Sorry, I got to go, but great presentation, but
Many
I've got to run back.
I just want to say thanks to Bill. This is his last meeting, everybody. So we appreciate all that you've done.
Trying to sneak out and you caught him.
Well, very interesting. I'd like to stay, but I've got to get back up the hill. But,
Thank you, sir.
I would like to say thanks to PPACG, to all the CDOT staff, and all our peers for taking great care of us up there in Midland Park. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for helping us get some cool things done. So.
Thanks, Bill, for being a great partner.
So in this case, if we consider something more capital intensive, full signal rebuild, let's say $400,000. So, and of course, City of Colorado Springs can easily apply for the HSID grant from CDOT, and I'm sure that would be a no-brainer for them to fund the money. In this case, a benefit cost ratio on the $400,000 is 17.84 to 1. Highly cost effective, even if you have to do complete signal rebuild. But in the meantime, I think one may consider changing the phasing. That's just one of the many examples. The whole city of Colorado Springs has an opportunity with low-hanging fruits. It's an orchard of opportunities for safety improvement if we only know where to plot those fruits. Many thanks, and that's the news from Lake Wobegon. Any questions I can answer? Silence.
Well, I just, CDOT has a state safety plan.
Yes.
Part of that plan was to identify and do safety on local roads, and I'm not sure that that's been done yet. And, you know, Vision Zero is one of the main programs or, you know, initiatives that there is, not only at CDOT, but also National Association of County Engineers and other locations. So I guess I'm just wondering, you know, you say you're working with other counties and other cities
Yes,
throughout
10
the
cities and
state.
counties in the state of Colorado.
And so I guess my question is, how are they funding work like this? Because what they talked about in a recent conference I was at was actually really doing the diagnostics first and then analyzing that with the crash data. But what you're showing is more of the identifying that first and then looking at the diagnostics at
There are
that.
different ways to do it.
Sure.
And
Two questions, I guess, so.
No, well, these are great
it's-
questions, if I may take them, and then you guys could correct me if I'm off my rocker. I worked for CDOT for many years. So I used to be what used to be Region 6 traffic and safety engineer for many years. In any case, a couple of things. CDOT has HSIP program where you can apply for funds for safety improvements on local roads. traditionally, just given staffing at CDOT, they're focused state highways, really. Some of the intersections of local roads intersect state highways, so they may or may not identify those clusters. Now, what happens off-state system, very, very hard for CDOT to analyze. Now, they could assist you in many ways, but for the most part, their focus historically has been and will remain to be for foreseeable future on state highways, number one. Number two, however, HSIP enables you to receive money for safety improvements on all roads if they meet certain threshold, and there are two thresholds used by CDOT. Number one, level of service of safety 4, or a crash pattern that exceed 95th percentile probability. So if any one of those conditions met, you could apply for HOS fund or through HSIP, and then likely to be highly competitive in receiving construction and design money for safety improvements on county roads or city streets. The challenge lies with the city or the county to identify where these opportunities are. And of course, Vision Zero Suite's been designed for state highways as well as city streets and county roads. What we analyze today is just the city street. Doesn't have any mileposts. All we need to know is the street names. And then we could analyze effectively and efficiently the magnitude and nature of the problem and how susceptible it is to an effective countermeasure and perform benefit cost analysis in matter of minutes. And that's how the system is designed.
In the latest transportation bill that was planned, the funding for the safety set-aside went from $20 million to $40 million for the state of Colorado. Half of that money is available for the locals to apply for projects every year. Because it's money that's available every year.
I get that, and that's why I asked the question. You know, historically, it's been hard for us as the county to compete with the city.
It is.
Just because, you know.
Well, so we've been
Yeah.
awarded 3 projects. We've been funded, and this CDOT's basically, when we applied, it's a crash rate.
Yep.
And you're right. When you have such low volume roadways like in the county, you know, it's hard to compete.
Well, and it's hard for us to identify those locations because, you know, there may be some really things that can compete well by doing a simple guardrail thing, but we don't have the data to really support that well.
Well, we hope to be of assistance with Vision Zero Suite because it has statewide data. And we cleanse the data every year. We provide support and training, and we designed the system to identify opportunities that may be on low roads. What we see on low roads, higher severity. You may have fewer crashes, but if you have a well-defined pattern of, let's say, roadway departure or a head-on crash, it is susceptible to a countermeasure, and those higher severity translate into higher benefit cost ratio, and CDOT could still fund construction if it meets these kinds of criteria.
And many times in a rural area, that's a very simple fix.
It could be
So
in many
high-
cases.
yeah.
And, you know, we have some intersections there with high crash numbers, but the volume through those intersections is so high the rate drops.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't compete well.
Right. Well,
It'd be nice to change that formula.
well, the formula has been changed.
Oh, it has been changed.
CDOT no longer uses crash rate for anything
Oh, good.
because the crash rate is not constant.
Yeah.
It changes with congestion, and it changes differently in different facilities. And the crash rate in the CDOT process have been replaced by safety performance function.
Okay.
And so if you choose to apply on the city's behalf, you could be very competitive. And what we have seen, the city of Colorado Springs is just a tremendous opportunity for safety improvement.
I used to run the HSIP program at CDOT, and that was one of the things that we changed there, to get rid of crash rates and go with the level of service or a pattern, because even with level of service, if you drop below the mean and you're in, like level say was 2,
Yeah.
you still have a pattern. If 10 crashes is below normal, but if 9 of them are broadsides, that's still a pattern that is correctable, and it's still applicable to be looked at for fun.
Just to give a medical analogy, a patient may have perfectly normal body temperature and blood pressure and still have cancer. You cannot see. So you need to have tools to discern any kind of pathology. And that's a tool we developed with Vision Zero Suite.
Great.
So we looked at this, and the cost of it is roughly equivalent to what it takes us with our staff time to update the crash records, but we get significantly more capabilities with it. So we're looking at how do we get this under contract, and then do analyses that we can provide data to you to make our region more competitive for those pots of money. So.
Well, just from a citizen standpoint, that's something that we deal with all the time, is the perception of whether it's really a safety issue or not. In fact, we just had something on one of our roads that they're saying, it's speed. There's a lot of speeding. Well, you actually go to the data, and it's really not that bad.
That's right.
It's really not a speeding issue. So, and that's the data not only from a safety standpoint, but dealing with our citizens and identifying, we get a lot of times those citizens who are wanting specific improvements when,
There's not a problem.
There's not a problem, or the cost-benefit ratio isn't there. So I think from a local standpoint, that can also assist us with identifying where to put our local money, including our PPRTA money, our PPRTA maintenance money. So,
Safety is notoriously counterintuitive. What may feel comfortable is actually very unsafe in some cases. And what may feel uncomfortable, it is very safe. So we should not be fixing things because they just feel uncomfortable. We need to be data-driven in our decision support analysis, in our efforts to optimize safety within constraints of available budget. And what it does, it enables to have a constructive dialogue from a place of credibility for the county. If people that are complaining about safety at a piece of road, you can meet with them for breakfast, and you could show them that this location indeed is much better than the average location, carrying the same amount of traffic on similar roads in the state of Colorado. And that enables to give you opportunity to build consensus around the county government. So it's a political tool as well as a safety improvement system.
So how do these other entities, fund this?
Well,
Are
basically,
they doing it through their MPOs as well?
we so far only dealt with cities and counties, and they find, source of funds within their budgets, because your productivity from a safety standpoint, safety analysis standpoint, will go up about 20 times. Your effectiveness, I can't even measure how much more effective you would be. You would use Colorado-specific data and state-of-the-art methods. You could optimize limited funds, and that very quickly pays for a relatively small cost of the service. Not to mention benefits with enforcement efforts. You could potentially target law enforcement by saying, roadway departure, impaired driver is focused on this piece of road. Don't look for it anywhere else because it's not occurring anywhere else. Because some problems are just not susceptible to enforcement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Many thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Well, just, Craig, based upon my recent experience at the conference that I went to, the National Association of County Engineers, this is, one of the predominant issues that was at that conference, looking at these rural safety, not only rural but also urban safety. So I guess I would fully support, and I'd also, just from a standpoint of also want to look at it, if we could, as far as the whole region, including unincorporated, all of unincorporated El Paso County. So I don't even know if that's a possibility.
Our plan would be to get the MSA data, so El Paso and Teller County.
That would be great. I think that will make us and make our elected officials have a lot better data to where we can best spend our money.
Yep.
Not only through PPACG, but also our local funds, and especially PPRTA, because I know the county uses PPRTA maintenance funds to address some of these issues.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Me too. And like I said, the cost is about what we would spend in our staff time to do a lot less. So
is there any data that you need from us as local entities to be able to support this?
no, actually, just talking with Tim is trying to come up with a partnership We've talked about some the contracting, and it would be for PPACG. I think we can have 5 logins or something. I don't know about how it would work to have a login out at the city and the county. What the extra cost would that be? But we can talk about it later. I have some ideas. So.
I would like to be completely engaged in that, so thanks. All righty. Member entity announcements.
Well, I was going to announce it as Bill's last meeting, but he's gone. I do have one thing from CDOT. There are 3 projects that the money expired. It looks like 2 of them may have been fixed, but there's one with a potential, the Falcon Park and Ride may have some expired money issues. Working with CDOT on making sure that that just gets cleansed and we get new money instead of the old money it's gone now.
Can you
It's
explain how that happened with authorization so they understand?
the projects were originally funded with a pot of money that no longer exists.
State or federal?
Federal. It's the transportation enhancement money.
The oldie,
Yes.
Oh, is this just the small amount of money for the parking?
Yes, $72,000, I think. But we're,
Yeah.
the 2 projects with the city were $509,000 and $201,000. So they're a little bigger numbers. But it looks like working with CDOT, going to be able to get those cleansed.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to use state money to backfill it, is what I think will happen.
Okay.
Because those monies are
I'll
gone.
just say we may not need that on the park and ride. I mean, I've been.
So I don't think you have to worry about it. It's just the idea that you need to know that, because what's going to happen with those projects that didn't get budgeted this year, it'll have to roll forward. Since it didn't go to construction before the end of this fiscal year, it will be a roll forward on a TIP amendment. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that.
I appreciate that. I mean, the reason why we haven't budgeted all that is because we were waiting for this last TIP amendment to get the last amount of money, and
Right.
So we need us to submit a TIP amendment?
No, you're good. You're done. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yours is done. Yours isn't, though.
well, like I said, we may not need it. We may need to just give, I guess we're already giving the money back, but, there's a lot of high groundwater there. I'm not sure it's the best location for that.
Okay.
For the water quality stuff.
Yeah, maybe just really difficult to do. And we have to do water quality anyway, but it may not be the best place for demonstration site.
Okay. I guess I have one other item for future TAC amendment. I'll just skip them and go back to member announcements. We need to do a UPWP amendment. We have a couple things we need to add, some numbers we need to change, so I'll look for that next month. More member entity announcements?
Tonight's our Research Parkway Roadway Diet meeting, so that'll be fun. It's a 6-lane road where we have 20,000 vehicles per day, kind of like Barnes, and we only really need 4. So we're looking at right-sizing the roadway to install buffered protected bike lanes.
Not this funding, but we recently had our Baptist Road West ribbon cutting yesterday, so that's another great PPRTA project that's now completed. So, 2 projects in one. So, anything else? Anybody? Alrighty, items for future TAC meetings.
Yeah, UPWP amendments. And then we're going to, we're going to do a regional tour to help get Jennifer and Kevin acquainted with our region. So if you have any areas you'd like us to look at next week, let us know, because we'll be driving around. But then we're going to start laying out the next long-range plan and TIP process.
Do you want to scare them, or do you want to,
Either way. So look for, probably the first 3 things that'll be coming up on the next plan amendment, or next plan update, will be small area forecast, public involvement procedures. What was the third one? We had 3 that we talked about. I don't remember. But, so we're going to be starting it up again.
Oh, can we have a 2040 presentation to our CTAB?
Totally.
Okay. Be looking for that at the June if it's okay. If
Yeah.
it works with your
Yeah, just
calendar.
let me know. There is a week I'm gone, but
Okay.
Great, anything else? All righty. Adjourn? So I have a motion.
Yes.
First? Oh, we're just adjourned. Thanks, guys.